And do you want to share the screen?
Yes, doing that.
Hi guys, good morning to a few, good afternoon to the other few, and good evening to the rest of us. My name is Rishikesh Trivedi, and I have with me Heman Jain. Some of you know me, some of you know Heman. Together, we are here to, unwrap a gift which you already have, which is the gift of time. And the purpose of uh, the webinar that we believe we can do is to help you utilize that to the fullest. Hemant, you want to kickstart the rest of it, and then we move on?
Sure. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And we'll directly dive in, setting expectations first. What we have today is an hour-long webinar where we want to introduce a few concepts, remind you about a few of the ideas and thoughts which we already have, and generally raise awareness about a crucial topic. So we equate that to a lot of Lego blocks which are there, we bring to the table. And then, of course, you can do it yourself. You can start piecing the Lego blocks together. Of course, some of you might want to take the journey forward with us in the form of the workshop which we have. At the end of the month, we'll do a workshop wherein we actually get into a very structured way of action planning and working with those Lego blocks. So a kind of manual. And then, of course, you can continue doing it yourself, or for those who might want to have further hand holding or further guidance, then we have a year-long program where we work very closely with you in group as well as one-on-one, hand holding to create a full implementation action plan and actually start implementing that. So this is the journey we are looking at, and you choose how far you want to go with that, either by yourself or with us. Coming to the concept, and of course, Babu Mushaye, Zindagi Badi Honi Chahiye, Lambi Nahi. We have heard this and we so much believe in it. At the same time, we have also heard things along the lines that always be prepared, always be ready, live in such a way that death can never find you unprepared. Uh, Live in the present moment. Don't think about the future too often. Prepare for it, but live in the future. But let's, with this kind of a backdrop, let me ask a few questions. If you have access to paper pen, write down the answers. If not, maybe just note down the answers on your mobile phone in the chat. Four questions, four numbers. Numbers will be the answers, and then you will do a bit of calculation. Okay, so the first question, your age. I'm not asking you to share it here on the WhatsApp, on the group or anything, on the chat. Just keep that number in your head, write it down. That's the first number you will be working with. Second number is, how old is your oldest relative? Any person you know, the highest age that you have come across in people around you, make a note of that number. The third question, when do you plan to retire? We all have a certain timeline in mind till the time we will work, and then we have this dream of retiring. Of course, in this day and age, a lot of people also talk about early retirement. There's this craze or a dream of early retirement. You may have yours. Put your number on paper. What is your plan? What age do you plan to retire? And of course, the last and final question, the uncomfortable question: how long do you think you're going to live? What is your lifespan? And do you think you're going to live till 70, 80, 85? Of course, we have had Shagufta with her answer ready. That's also a number. Put that number in place. You have got four of these numbers. How old are you? How old is your oldest relative? When do you plan to retire? And at what age do you think you will be leaving the world? Four numbers. And now we get into calculation. So, very simple calculation. How many years to your retirement? That's simply your retirement age minus your age today. That gives you how many years you will be working. Uh, how many years to your retirement? Then how long will be your retired life, which is the year in which, your life year in which you retire until the age when you retire from life. So that would be your length of retired life. And now the big question, what is your readiness for that span of retired life. And that's going to be a lot of our conversation today. So that, put it as a percentage. How much do you think you are ready? You have planned for it, and you're like all set that okay, I am ready, and a certain degree of confidence that I'm all set for my retirement. Well, coming back to Mr. Anand, बाबू शायद जिंदगी बड़ी होनी चाहिए लंबी नहीं, but the fact of the matter is शायद जिंदगी लंबी भी है, and that's what is life is changing in fact. So our social dynamics are transforming from a life we probably lived in India to the life we have lived in Dubai. The exposure to the absolute diversity of people, thought processes, thinking, approach to life is absolutely massive. In our lifetime, we have come across so much of this social dynamics, and it will continue to increase more and more as we live in different places and get exposed to people from different parts of the world. Technology is changing our lives. Like, I mean, I think our generation, most of us on the call, have probably seen and even worked on a typewriter. And we are in the age where so many of the things are happening on a small device in our palm, in our hand, the mobile phone. We already have smart watches which can pretty much do a lot of the things which our mobile phones do. And we are already seeing the arrival of the wearables. Your spectacles, the lenses will be your screens and all the functions in it. We are heading towards that. And yes, Neuralink, Elon Musk company, have already implanted their first chip inside the human brain. So that phase of technological advancement is also here. So as technology changes, our lives also change significantly. And the rate of change is also very, very rapid. Little bit of statistics in terms of longevity. The average lifespan, if you look at it, right from, I mean, 2 centuries ago, 1800s, when lifespan in India was about 25 years, it has grown to about 67 on an average in 2012, over 200 period. And different countries, the lifespan has grown accordingly. But remember, this is average lifespan. And average lifespan will follow the bell curve. You will have the number in between, but you have got people who are living longer and you have people living shorter also. People who are living in the leading cities, which have got better infrastructure, lesser pollution, better lifestyle, better access to healthcare, and greater standard of living, your lifespan automatically increases. All of us, like most of us living in Dubai or a London or a city in US, our lifespan has increased by probably a decade just by this single decision of ours. By living in a better place or a better access to the facilities, we are improving our lifespan also. So we are coming to the question of the 100-year life, the centenarian, a person above the age of 100. So here's a question. How many people do you think are above the age of 100 in the world right about now? Take a guess, put the number in the chat. Let's see how many people do you think are out there who are 100 plus today. Take a guess. Worldwide number. We are 7-8 billion population. So how many people do you think are above 100? Deepak says 10,000. Good guess. 1250. Okay. We got any more numbers coming in? Okay, so we have got 10,000 and 1250 to work with. Well, let's look at the numbers. 500,000 people above the age of 100 in 2020. So that's pretty much our pre-COVID numbers. We were already 500,000 people. That's a very large number of people across the world who are aged 100 plus. This kind of makes the 100-year life a lot more real than the statistics we have seen. So statistically, yes, we are living longer, but when you see a number like this, and it just becomes far more real for you. Let me introduce you to the blue zones across the world. These 5 places across the world, Loma, Nicoya, Sardinia, Ikaria, and Okinawa in Japan. These are places, small towns, villages, small cities maybe, but these are places where people living longer than 100 is not an exception. It's just normal. Every other person is expecting to live longer than 100 because that is the norm in their place, in their village, in their town. These are the blue zones. They have, they are a subject of research now, that why are people in these areas living so much longer? Well, this is to establish the fact that what we have been talking about, that the future you envisaged is now going to last longer, not just for you, but for everyone. And which is why the need to look at your current actions, because they are going to have a great impact on your future needs. So that's a balancing act for you. Well, that brings us to our recalculation. You'll have to recalculate those numbers which you did. How long do you think you will live? Maybe the number has changed. Maybe you have put another number. Maybe you're sticking to the number which you gave. But if that one number changes, how many years to your retirement and how long will be your retired life, those two numbers also change. And that would change everything. That changes your perspective of the life you were looking ahead. That would change your perspective of your readiness for that life. That changes not just your calculations for life, but also what am I going to do with all that hours, right? So coming to the hours, an additional 10 years gives you about 90,000 hours. Even if one third you were sleeping, you still have a solid 60,000 hours extra in your life for every decade that you live extra beyond your expectations. So we all have heard this, right? 10,000 hours to master a skill. These days we go on YouTube, Coursera, any site, in few years we are trying to learn a new skill. But to truly master a skill, it would take 10,000 hours. With 60,000 hours additional waking awake hours in just a 10-year span, imagine what you could do with that much time. You could do a lot, of course. Learn something new, utilize it, practice it, and then learn something new again. You would have a lot of time for that. So basically, in our conversation around a longer life, how you choose to use and structure the time that you have on hand is at the heart of the response to a longer life. The only thing you got to deal with is time, and the rest follows. A fantastic quote by a violinist, an artist, when you say, when you think in long spans of time, you build beautiful cathedrals. Of course, a metaphor. And when you think short term, fiscal quarter to quarter, we build shopping malls. You can relate this to your life, your view of life. And when you have a longer time, you plan better. You plan big things. In short term, you plan, of course, the smaller ones. Let's take another perspective to your time. Time, whom do you spend your time with? And this is a statistic across your lifespan, right from 0 to 80 years of age. And you can extend it to 100. The trend lines will just continue along the way. And you see that the time that you spend with yourself, the time which you spend alone, doing what? मैं और मेरी तन्हाई अक्सर ये बातें करते हैं, thinking, mind chatter, wondering. That time significantly increases with your age. The time which you spend with your partner, that also significantly increases. And time that you spend with family, children, friends, co-workers, all of that reduces to bare minimum. So that's the focus area. What are you going to do with all that time that you have to spend with yourself and your partner? Of course, you need to have a great relationship with your partners because you are spending a significant amount of time with them. But what about that relationship with yourself? How do you see time? What is your relationship with your time? That's going to become very, very crucial. Of course, the time which is reducing, the family, friends, co-workers, and children, would you want to increase that? If you wanted to, naturally it is going to go down. So if you wanted it to go up, you'll have to put in efforts. You'll have to work towards it. It's not going to happen by it. So that's another perspective. And yes, Sheryl Sandberg, the former CEO of Facebook, Meta, she had said the most important decision you'll ever make is who your partner is, because a lot of your life decisions will depend on your partner. And the second half of your life, you're going to spend a significant amount of your time with your partner. So your happiness is going to be absolutely intricately and of course intimately linked to your partner. Very important. Well, if you have to sum up this whole conversation, it is going to be about reconfiguring your time. And that, of course, requires a reconfiguring of your mindset. The way you look at things, the way you perceive things, the way you approach life in the larger picture. That's what it is going to take to have a happier, longer life. Well, just to highlight this again, time spent alone versus and the time spent with your partner, the most important parts. So when it is time spent alone with yourself, we all have had our careers, and I'm sure all of you have heard about the concept of ikigai. You must have heard it about it on WhatsApp, on LinkedIn posts, or even in our Toastmaster speeches. Let me talk about a few very specific things about the ikigai circle. Is when one of the circles, one of the elements is missing, what happens? So let's look at something, top circle, what you love. If that's missing, so you're good at it, you're getting paid for it, and that's something the world needs. So you are in this small circle, small triangle below the word ikigai. You're comfortable, but the feeling of emptiness is there because you don't love what you're doing. Whereas you love what you're doing, but you're not getting paid for it. There is delight and fullness of life because you love what you're doing, you're good at it, and the world really needs it. But you're not getting paid for it. So, well, delight and fullness, but no wealth. So, if you are experiencing any of these, the comfortable but feeling of emptiness, satisfaction, but feeling being useless, then you have not found your ikigai. And this is going to be important because you just realize that you're going to live a longer life and you're going to spend a lot of time with yourself. You can't be frustrated because one of these situations exists. The need to find your ikigai, the need to find something that you love, that will, of course, get paid, and the world needs it and people value it. That will also become very, very important. This concept will become increasingly important as you advance in life. Well, all these thoughts, all these fun facts, all these tidbits of life and philosophies brought together, me and Rishikesh got started talking about it, and that gave birth to the Centennial journey, the program. More about this program straight from Rishikesh. So let me hand over the stage to Rishikesh now.
Thanks, Hemant. And personally, I'm extremely happy to have met somebody like Shagufta today because Hemant knows, and some of my close friends also know, for almost the last 10, 12, 15 years, I have been very clear in my mind that I'll live 100 years and how will I structure my life, correct? So a lot of frameworks, thoughts have gone into that over the last 10, 12, 15 years, right? Multiple points of view, perspectives. And then around 7, 8, 6, 7 months back, I found a book called The 100-Year Life. Obviously, I immediately bought it. I went through it and it helped him. The screen sharing has stopped. Uh, so I went through it immediately. It helped me set up a decent framework, right? So with all the thoughts over the last 10, 12, 14 years, when I went through the book, there was a certain aspect of almost 30, 40, 45% of what I was not able to structure in a certain, form, which I was able to do with the help of the book. And, then me and Hemant also got together and we said, if now that at least in my mind, I'm extremely clear in terms of how, uh, you know, uh, I would like to take it, and how. And so I'm very clear in my life till 65, 70, right? And obviously as you cross over a certain hill, you see the bigger hill, and then you see the bigger hill. But at least from a framework standpoint, I'm very clear for 100, 105, 110, 120-year life. So I'm sorted from that standpoint in my mind. And then the thought was, can we use the framework and you know uh, help a set of other people whom may also be part of the journey. And one of the elements obviously is the regenerative friendships. And if you know some of us live till 100, then we may be talking about today for a very, very long time. Correct. So that's the background of the Centennial journey in terms of how we conceptualized it, and how both of us have worked together over the last few months. Uh, Hemant, you want to move to the next one? Yeah. So once again, as Hemant mentioned, this is a 1 hour webinar, which will lead to a 1 day workshop, which will then lead to a 1 year journey program that we have created. And the core of the entire program, whether it at a webinar level, workshop level, or a 1 year journey level, is how you choose to use and structure the gift of time that you have at hand. And that will truly define what will you know, achieve at the end of it. So preparing for a happy 100-year life. So now we will go through a few trends that we are seeing, we are envisioning. Some of them we are not seeing, but they are there, and only when somebody describes that trend is when it comes to us, right? Some of them are already at some place in time in the back of our mind, right? So our parents lived a traditional three-stage life: education, work, retirement, right? Very simple for them: 20 years of education, 40 years of work, which was predominantly of a very similar nature, not too much of chaos, not too much of changes, uh, and then a decent 10, 15-year retired life. But when it comes to us, what we are slowly seeing, is that we will enter a multi-stage life. Some of us have already had one or two pivots in our lives as well, correct? And we will end up reinventing ourselves, what we do, how we do, what we focus on, and how we are seen by the people around us, uh, you know, into a multi-stage life. And a multi-stage life is not just the complexity of 1 plus 1 plus 2, or 2 plus 2 is 4. It is actually more in terms of 2 raised to 2 is 4, or 3 raised to 3 is 9, 27. The complexity level increases at an exponential pace when you have to navigate it a bit more. So with a multi-stage life, what it does is it gives us an opportunity to have multiple roles as part of our life. It also helps us have multiple roles at a similar phase in life as well. Whether we are an explorer, where we are trying to figure out what we will do next, or we are educating ourselves, reskilling ourselves, recreating ourselves, or we are working as an employee or an entrepreneur. Those are just business elements, or how we spend our time and how we make our money. Are we going to be an independent contractor with a certain amount of freedom that we have? Or for some of us, we may be more inclined towards being a social contributor. And a lot of us may actually end up doing two, three, four of those things at a similar time in life, right? So what we would think is it's now time to reinvent ourselves, right? And recreation is going to be more important than recreation. Now, it will be imperative for us, that we utilize some amount of our recreation time to invest into skills, health, relationships, which may not sound, great to hear, but if we don't do that, we will end up, suffering at a certain point in time, right? So it's the 10,000 hours that is required to reskill yourself. And if you have 60,000 more hours, do you spend it on Netflix, or do you do something, productive with it, right? Work-life balance, right? So we not a lot of times we hear the term work-life balance. I need to maintain my work-life balance. I need to maintain, I'm trying to figure out a way to do this. And I have been always been of a question into why is work separate from life, right? Isn't work supposed to be part of life, right? And why wouldn't work and life be an integrated element of how we view things? Okay. And if we don't do it that way, the challenge is we consider work as a punishment so that the reward is life. Correct. So it's a matter of perspective. If we can figure out, career gaps will become common and pretty acceptable. I mean, all of us, any one of us, even if we look at 10 years back, 15 years back, and somebody was having a career break, we're like, job gaya साले का जॉब दूसरा मिला नहीं है career break की बातें कर रहा है, right? But today it's no longer the case, right? Today it's fairly common. People do take breaks, they say, okay, I want to reorient myself and figure out what I want to do, things like that. And the longer you live, the more time we have at hand, the more the onus is on us to create who we are, right? If you had a 30-year life, 40-year life, yes, you need to end up going with the flow, because the first 15 years of your life, you are just with your parents or in an environment which you can't impact a lot, and things like that. But the moment you say, I'm going to live 100 years, you have sufficient time at hand, right? To influence, to change the environment around you based on who you are, what you think you need to do, etc., etc. Correct? So it's not about living by chance in terms of what comes to us in life and we just work along. We can definitely live with a choice that we have. Options will definitely become more valuable the more chaotic the outside environment is, the more important the options are, right? If it is a linear life, which possibly our parents and the older generations have done, then it is fairly okay to have, a simple rule of life. I will continue to do this, the means will justify the ends, and you're pretty okay, to learn one or two skills and take it to the rest of your life. But when it comes to the chaotic and the things, the way they are moving around, it's always better to have your options open, reskill yourself, try a few things, do A/B testing with multiple things that are at hand, which you like, which you don't like, etc., and then take things forward. People will definitely work into their 70s or 80s. Now, this work may or may not be, job oriented work. It could be social contribution or whatever else, but they will end up working because they will be moving around. And at some point in time, even with, leaving all the financial oriented commitments, and even if you have tons of money, you still will end up doing something, because what will you do for 24 hours a day, right? So, and of course, the existential quest obviously is, getting the finances right will not be everything. You will have to look beyond finances when you have to look at a longer life, right? Finances is important. Without that, it won't work, but you can still look at, you need a lot more other things to look at. And generational complexity will slowly start increasing, right? Because the moment we start switching and moving around, we will find that we might be entering a new field, but there might be somebody younger than us who is already in that field for 5 years, and they will become our seniors, which was not the case, for our parents. For them, age defined the hierarchy, and you just your education plus age, that simple two parameters would define how high you will rise, right? Which is no longer the case in our generations, and fortunately the generations moving forward. Uh, Flexible smart cities are on the rise. Clusters will arise. We've always heard clusters of innovation, clusters like Silicon Valley, Bangalore, they are great startup hubs. Nagpur, there is a new drone cluster coming up by the government, things like that, right? So this will always keep on happening. So then, we need to figure out, where am I living? That also becomes an important element, because depending upon the kind of environment you need to be from an innovation standpoint or living your life standpoint, you need to then pick and choose that place accordingly. So the idea really is, how do we explore multiple possibilities, and that's what we intend to look at it, and helping you building the route, right? So we always think of us as a Google map, where you are, where you want to be, and we find alternate routes, relevant milestones, and navigating the path, right? Obviously, in a longer life, you need co-passengers in your journey. You need to, choose them wisely. And once you arrive at those things, there's only one thing left, which is planning your time. How you choose to utilize your time, that will create your life or recreate your life, as you would call it. So this obviously is the core thing. So what we have done as part of the Centennial journey is, we've highlighted some of the elements. So obviously there is a set of tangible assets that you need to have from a financial standpoint. We are trying to avoid that. And then you have productive assets, vitality assets, transformative assets, your logic of life, because each of us has a different way of living, not from a anything else, but even the logic, the what we think is right and wrong, what we think somebody else should do, what we think we should be doing, that itself changes from person to person. So that's very important. It's a very personalized way of looking at it, building the personal path and navigating the path. That's broadly what the journey will entail. So when we look at the assets part of it, there are both tangible and intangible part of the assets. Tangible assets obviously are financial oriented, what you have in your bank account, your cars and whatever, we keep that aside. What we will be focusing on is the intangible part of the assets. Now, how do we define intangible assets? There's no marketplace for it, right? So you need to have your own, you have to build those things. There are minimal substitutions. It's not like you can do this and you can, substitute that with something else. So your knowledge is not going to substitute peers, right? Your health is not going to substitute self-knowledge, right? You will have to have all of them in some shape and form, and they're fairly irreversible, right? If your health breaks down at some point in time, uh, you may be able to get it back, right, with a lot of time, effort, but it's fairly irreversible, right? It's very difficult to get it back. It's easier to lose money and get money, easier to lose, or have a fight with a friend and get that friend back, right? But extremely difficult to lose health, and things like that. So these are the three assets that we will be looking for during the workshop and the program. Uh, Tangible assets, we will assume that you already are sorted for that. We are not going to touch the tangible assets. Again, 1 hour webinar, 1 day workshop, and 1 year journey is what we are looking at this program to be. Uh, Coming back to one of the critical elements of the various elements that we spoke about is, who are you? And if you think back beginning, half an hour ago or 45 minutes ago, when we were all introducing ourselves, right? Most of us introduced ourselves in terms of who we are from a work content standpoint. Most of us did that, right? Very few of us told that I like to do this, I like to travel, I like to play cards, I have 2 daughters, I have to do this, I like this. Everybody spoke about what they do as a work, because unfortunately, that is who we have started thinking, that is what defines us, right? And hence we start looking, whenever we look at who am I, we look at a work life balance rather than work life integration, right? So what are we pegging our identity on? That to us, as part of the workshop and all, is a very critical element of what we need to do, because whatever you will peg your identity on will define how you take things forward, right? Obviously, we have seen how identity crisis quickly creeps in. People who think, oh, I'm from KPMG, I'm from Deloitte, I'm from Google, I'm from Facebook. There's a layoff and there's no identity. They are struggling to define who they are, right? So we need to rethink on who am I, right? That will obviously be one of the elements of when we do this. And this is, I mean, I don't think it is rocket science to define what your purpose is, right? But end of the day, all of us need to have a purpose, need not be public, personal, each to each one their own, right? And then it is only about how we work with that purpose to take things forward. And hence we define I am so and so, so and so, so and so. Now, while we are trying to do that, we would also like to highlight something called as a cognitive biases. Most of us may have heard it, may or may not have fully comprehended what we are talking about. Maybe over the in this webinar, we are just going to take one of them, and we'll take more as we go along in the workshop and other things. Uh, Most of us may have uh, heard this, known this, that a mighty elephant is tied with a thin rope, right? And the reason they are able to do that is because in the childhood, the elephant is tied with a very strong rope and a chain and things like that, right? So in the childhood, they try to pull away, break the chain, they are not able to do that, right? And somehow it sinks in to their mindset that this is something that I cannot break, right? They'll lift 20 stones, but they can't break a thin rope, right? So that's what starts happening, uh, when the cognitive biases start playing on the human mind and on the animal mind as well, for that matter, right? Because we get, you know, structured in a way what we start thinking this is possible, this is not possible, or this is what I should be doing and this is what I should not be doing, right? In all, if you look at things, there are more than 180 cognitive biases that are there. Obviously, we are not going to go through all of them, even in the 1 year program. The idea is to uh, help you understand that this is there as a reality, and then each one can look at those things and try and get free of the illusion of free will, right? Because these cognitive biases are working behind the scenes. We don't even know that they are working, and we feel and think that we have a certain way of doing things, and that is what we our choice is. Next one. We believe it's a time for change, and living a long life is a burden if it is spent in misery. So if we don't, utilize the possibilities that are there, uh, then it may become a burden, right? So again, this is what we are looking at doing. Hemant, you want to just take things from here?
I mean, we are practically at the end of our presentation. We've actually shared all the Lego blocks that we wanted to keep in front of you so that you can now look at those Lego blocks, turn them around, rethink the Lego blocks of your life and start piecing together a new life. For somebody who might be interested in joining the workshop, a little bit about the workshop. It's okay. I'll just jump back one. Yes, that's right. Yeah. The workshop will be a full day workshop in Dubai. 24th of February is the date we have fixed for it. And of course, we understand that we have got audiences from the US, from India, UK, and a few other parts of the world. For them, we will also have an online workshop, which will be spread across 4 Saturdays of March and not a single 8-hour session. 8-hour session face to face is great. Online, we are just, I mean, it doesn't work. So we will do it in four batches of like 4 groups of 2 hours each. That's going to be the format. What we will cover in this 1 day workshop, it's going to be intensive. We are going to explore the concept, the meaning, the interpretation, and also a lot of brainstorming on these 4 modules, which are very critical to this restructuring of life. First module is going to be the vitality assets and productivity assets. Second will be the transformative assets. Once we are through with these assets and you have a fair idea of what your assets are, then we look at how are you going to restructure the time. And then, of course, we start thinking about and looking at how do you practically create the multi-stage life options. Because you have a life ahead of you and you really need to create the options. So at the end of the 8-hour workshop, you should have already had a very good self evaluation of your structure of time, the way you structure your time currently, and also start building your assets that you have identified. And you can actually begin planning for your 100-year multi stage life structure. right? Of course, again, do it yourself, or if you want further handholding, then we have the 1 year journey wherein we build your entire journey along all these modules. So again, first module will be the vitality and the productive assets. Second module will be the transformative assets. Third will be your logic of life. Each one of us has a different approach to life. We view life differently. We consume life differently. We think about life very, very differently. So the way we will structure our life will also be different. So your logic of life, if you understand, then you will be able to build your path better, which will again be a very personalized path. Then about how do you navigate that path and ultimately your framework for your life. We keep those the word your in brackets because it's going to be a very personalized journey. The 1 year program will have a few group sessions, but a larger number a significant number of one-to-one sessions where we work with you to help you create your map for the 100-year life. You'll have a working plan for with very implementable strategies for the uh, life ahead. And also in this 1 year, it's not just planning, you're already implementing the plan because we'll be deep diving into all the concepts with practical actions, introspections. There will be self discovery, group discussions, brainstorming. There will be workbooks you will be writing your answers into, mini projects, and also social initiatives that actually force you into action and get you to do things. So that's the way we are structuring the whole journey, step by step, with greater intensity. And as I said, there is going to be a lot of one-to-one time being spent with the people who take on the journey. So that also puts a limit on the number of people we can work with. The way we are looking at it, at max, we will be able to work with 5 to 10. 10 would be the maximum number of people we will be able to work with because every week, twice a month, if we have to meet them one to one, in a week's time, we have to take out 10 hours for those 10 individuals. So this is not the only thing we'll be doing. We have got a whole lot of other things also which we are occupied with. So that's the extent of people we will be able to work with at least the first year. So that's what we are talking about. The webinar is done. The workshop will be next, and then the journey. But uh, combination of how serious you are, plus we do not have the capacity to work with too many people. Each of these transitions is not going to be easy. It's not going to be okay. I'm interested in the workshop. Here's the fee. I can join it. No, there is going to be an assignment which will come your way, a set of introspective exercises. You'll think about it and you will actually do an assignment. Only after you do the assignment do you qualify for the workshop. So we'll be sharing the questions, the assignments with you. Whether you're interested in the workshop or not, you should do the assignment because it is what is your takeaway from the webinar and you take action on it. If you're interested in the workshop, unless the assignment is done, we don't even talk about the workshop. So that's about it from my end. Rishikesh, uh,
So while we spoke about earlier in the webinar about 500,000 people by 2020, and somebody might be thinking, oh, then the COVID came in, and we know that the older people were the earlier to go and things like that, right? But you'll be surprised that estimates for this year is close to 1 million people, and by next year we definitely will cross 1 million people, right? So not only is the number of people doubled from 2010 to 2020 over a decade, over the next 5 years it is doubled again. So you know while a lot of us think मैं 100 साल जीऊंगा नहीं जीऊंगा जीऊंगी नहीं जीऊंगी, right? uh, the probability of us living 100 is definitely increasing at a faster pace, apart from the chaotic situation that is also changing in the environment, right? So uh, uh, again, the only thing that we can provide you is a conceptual framework of how you choose to use and structure the time on your hand, which is a gift of life given to you, so that you can have an appropriate and a meaningful response to living longer. we'll just leave you with one small anecdote. So there's this guy who's just walking past, he's seeing some construction happening. So he talks to the first guy, worker who is just trying to, do the work. He's like, क्या कर रहे हो? And he's like, आप देख नहीं रहे हो, मैं ईंटें उठा रहा हूँ. Like, okay, moves forward to the second guy. Like, आप क्या कर रहे हो? He's like, यहाँ पे कंस्ट्रक्शन चल रहा है. I am working in the construction site. ठीक है. Goes to the third guy. आप क्या कर रहे हो? He's like, यहाँ पे एक सुंदर मंदिर बनने वाला है और मैं उस मंदिर में सेवा दे रहा हूँ. Now, trying to think about these three thought processes, perspective of what you are doing, right? All three of them are doing the same thing. And in our life also, we have seen when we are working or engaging with people around us, a lot of people keep on doing the same things, right? But it is with what emotion, with what mindset, and with what approach do they do the same things matters a lot. And it is not just about the success or failure of that particular initiative. It is also about the journey. Last. So, which brings us to the 100th slide for the Centennial journey. I don't know how, somehow it came to be 100 there as well. We are here to help you reconfigure your time and reconfigure your mindset, right? So that probably we will have a happier life. That's about it. Thank you so much for your time and patience to hear both of us talk for almost an hour, I think. Yes, I think we have crossed 55 minutes of conversation. Very open for feedback from you.
Your thoughts? Okay. Balaji, am I on mute? No, I'm not. Okay. Would love to hear your thoughts on what has just been presented. Few uncomfortable facts, few interesting questions. Deepak? Okay. Thank you, Shagufta. You're leaving? Bye-bye. Hemal, Hitesh, Deepak.
Jeevan, you joined late, but if you have some thoughts around what we have.
You will have to unmute.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for that excellent presentation. I've had a previously a brief chat about this with Rishikesh in one of the meetings, but this has been laid across in much more detail. Um, so I have been on a similar, I would say, uh, journey for the past 3-4 years. Especially for the post-COVID period. And I am currently nurturing a startup in the space of what we I have coined as achieving holistic life success. So basically, it's a similar thought process whereby post-COVID people were forced to think about. Have I been walking on a treadmill throughout my life, or I've been going in any direction? And many of the decisions or many of the status quos were broken during that period, and people were forced to do a lot of pivots in their life. So, to support all that, we basically created this entire framework uh, of Zen Gurus. We call the platform as Zen Gurus, where we connect people with different, I would say, mentors, trainers, coaches in all aspects of life, and help them to balance their life in all the 7 critical pillars of life. And then also, we have plotted different 7 types of life journeys which typically people are on, and aid them to sort of navigate those 7 journeys effectively. Like one of the examples of a journey is from the womb to the dorm. So right from the time the child is conceived till the time the child is goes to the college is a parenting journey, and the focus of the individual's parents are just on that journey. And in a way, I quite correlate what you're trying to do here. That we are on different life journeys. Only thing, these journeys are now much longer, and we would require a much deeper handholding and better utilization of time with those extended journeys. So I sort of completely relate to what you are. Sorry for joining late. I was caught up in some traffic. Need to reach home. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for joining.
Thanks, Jeevan. Balaji, Hitesh, you want to give some feedback?
He has shared his
Uh,
comment in the chat. Probably he's not been
yes,
able to unmute.
unmute himself because of the thing. Yeah, that's fine, completely fine. Thank you so much for your time, guys. And we'll end the call now. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.